good to go here. I can hear myself, and yeah, I think we're good. So, before we get started, guys, welcome back. We're going to be recapping the final episode and season finale of Katie Thurston's The Bachelorette. As always, I'm the Han Factor, joined today with my normal co-host. I've got Josh, the Tasty Kebab. Josh, how are you doing? Say hi to the people.
It's great to be back, and oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we certainly do. So, as always, I'm going to drop a link to the Discord if you guys are interested in joining in the future, or if you have anything to contribute during our kind of podcast here. You're welcome to join the link above and talk about The Bachelorette with us. Josh and I think I agree that the one thing that I need is a good bottle of wine to kind of get through this episode. So cheers to that right now. Fill up my cup before we get started.
I don't have wine. I've got my beer, but you know it'll fit for now.
Oh my god. You know, for a season that I enjoyed so much for 90% of what I watched. Now I started late, granted, but you were there the entire time because you're a real one and I'm a fake bitch. But let me tell you, what an absolute train wreck I felt like I watched for the last episode and a half, right? Like, it just felt like the wheels fell off the bus and things just did not go how I wanted them to. You know, some happiness to it, but yeah, I mean, there was just so much. There's so much to unpack here. And really, it was just such a doozy of an episode, don't you think?
Yeah, you know, really, it felt like for all the growth the show's made, that it kind of just reverted back to the prototypical, this is The Bachelor, this is The Bachelorette, and we're gonna get full of drama.
Yeah. So, just kind of looking at this, and you know, the episode opens up this time, and Katie is essentially just kind of shit-talking Greg, from what I remember. It's just kind of like, hey, you know...
Yeah, in the previews here.
Yeah, I mean...
We get that recap, too, of everything that's gone down.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and so the opener is just Katie kind of negatively talking about Greg. Nothing that's too surprising. Obviously, it was shocking for her the way that conversation went down and the end of their relationship. So that was sad and disappointing. But the show must go on is essentially the vibe that I'm getting. You know, she's not ready to end the show here. She wants to keep going here. She wants to see whether she can find love or not. So they push forward, and Tayshia and Caitlyn come in, and you know who they have to tell? They have to tell Blake and Justin, the two remaining men, that Greg is gone, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Katie takes the mindset of let's just go forward, and it's time for the other guys to find out. They're kind of discussing like what they've seen out of Greg before, with him like kind of being in weird headspace.
Yeah.
And
so
yeah, they get the news broken. So, I mean, congratulations, Justin. You're on to another week.
Yeah, congratulations, Justin. You're on to another week. But as we see, that didn't last very long. But yeah, so which was kind of like
I want to ask you here first. What do you think about Katie's decision? Like, do you think that it's appropriate for her to be staying here? Obviously, we don't know.
Yeah,
everything that happened, everything that's going on in her mind.
Your mic, Josh, keeps like kind of cutting in and out, so it's hard for me to hear you sometimes. So I don't know if you can switch over to the old one or not, but it may be better to do.
2 seconds.
Yeah, take your time.
Stall.
And I'll get you back. Yeah. So, you know, a lot to kind of think about here is, I think your question is, what do I think of Katie's decision to press forward? And so this kind of becomes my theme and my impression of kind of the entire episode and the way that the show played out was she's either A, lying to herself, or B, lying to or lying to somebody else, right? So like I don't know if she's being 100% genuine with her thoughts and feelings, or I don't know if she's being genuine with like Blake and Justin at this point. So I don't know how you think about it, but
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. Was like, okay, is she actually here because she feels good about those relationships, or is she here now just because like those other options she had are gone? Because I mean, she
that's sure what
brings
it's
up
looking
again,
like.
she brings up again, yeah, like having those feelings for Michael too, which apparently hasn't been brought up to anybody at this
Oh
point
yeah,
yet
I
either.
know.
So-
He didn't get a big like, oh, Michael's gone by the way. Like no, it
yeah,
was.
they
We want you
kinda
to
just
know.
got told, oh, it's you two in the final two.
Yeah, we want you to know that it's you two in the final two. Katie's pressing on. She wants to try to find love with one of you. I was gonna say one or both of you. Hopefully not both. That would just make this even messier and more complicated than it already
You
is.
never know.
Yeah, you never know. So
New twist on this season.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it at this point because, like I said, this finale was just kind of a total like for me. It was like watching a train wreck to a certain extent because I don't know the way that Katie routinely brings up these conversations. It feels like to me that she is not as invested in Blake and Justin still, especially early. Now the rest of the episode kind of I think transitions away from that pretty good, but yeah, it's hard to watch as a viewer because I just don't feel like invested in the fact that she really does love Blake or Justin at the beginning of the episode. So, like I said, my mind changes a little bit as the episode goes on, but at the beginning, I just felt, hey, she clearly, like, this was my third and fourth choice at this point. This was not my first and second choice. So,
Yeah, I was definitely questioning all that. I just couldn't tell, and I'm like, well, if love is a lot about timing, but also you it's kind of not just about taking who falls into your lap. Like,
I
if
know.
you're missing opportunities, take some time for yourself.
Yep, agree.
So I was, a little surprised, I guess, seeing Katie not try to like talk to Greg again, and then if she wasn't doing that, also choose to like just go on with it, like go home, like spend some time to yourself, figure things out.
Yeah, for the
That's
first
just not the attitude she was taking there.
Yeah, and for the first like 15-20 minutes of the show, I was kind of anticipating. I was like, okay, I think her love story ends with Greg. But then I was like, oh, I guess not. So, boy, was I wrong. That's kind of all I had to say. But I've also been saying that Justin would be gone weeks ago. So, I was a little off base with this.
That about Justin
Obviously,
for a while.
Obviously,
the preview into the episode was pretty clear spoilers that
Mhm.
Things definitely were not going to be working out with Greg.
Oh, I mean, obviously, we saw the way that everything played out. That Greg is Dunzo, but it just kind of the episode jumps in past that. Like it's kind of like, okay, Greg's gone. How are we doing? And I want to go ahead and jump into the one-on-one date that Katie had with Blake, right? Because that's where it goes next.
Yep.
And so, they start off. It's they're throwing paint balloons at each other. And then they end up in a hot tub. The paint balloons, I thought that was also, like, Blake gets the fun, cute dates, right? Like, the darts last week with the truth or dare and the balloons and the paint balloons. I thought that was fun. Like, that's something that I would want to do, right? Like, I think that sounds like a fun date. So,
fun date. Something that they've already hit on a few times in these restricted seasons, but, it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely something fun, good, flirty, and then gotta clean up and hit the hot tub afterwards.
Yeah, and they kind of back into the hot tub, like, okay, let's get this, let's get this kind of wet and wild, if you will. No, they go into a very deep conversation. Katie opens it up and says, "Hey, I kind of got the feeling she was expressing a lot of self-doubt about this whole process and confiding in Blake how confident she was in her relationships with Michael A. and Greg, and how she's not entirely sure how to move forward from that almost. She says, I wanted to quit, and it's I don't know. I mean, Blake, I think, handles that situation very well, but he even says, too, he goes, I did not know how much of a established and how invested she was in those relationships. You know?
I mean, he handled it well, as in he didn't like blow up or freak out or anything, but all he really said was that's a lot, at least for what we were shown. And
well, I mean, that's a lot to. I would feel the same way.
I mean,
you?
it was a lot, but it didn't seem like he was really processing any of it.
Sure.
With Katie there.
Yeah.
And then he goes and talks about how he like really misread the Greg and Katie relationship and thought that it wasn't anywhere close.
Thank you for the follow. So.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Somebody just followed the stream. So.
Oh, I thought you were calling me Boo.
Oh, no. I agree with you, though. It's like, Blake talks about this, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how well he processes it, per se. Because, I think he does handle it well in the sense that he's like, because that's a lot to just dump on somebody, right? Like, you're just kind of like, okay, you were in love with somebody else, and now what are we doing, right?
I mean,
he doesn't freak out.
Like, the question there, the follow-up of, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And
you're just telling me that you had all these feelings and that these guys just left. So we're sitting here.
And I don't understand why that conversation turned into a makeout session. Yeah. Do you understand why that
ends in a makeout session?
Yeah, how does that end out in a makeout session, right? Like, hey, I actually really kind of love these other two guys more than you. Let's make out in the hot tub.
I mean, you're in a hot tub. So
I
They're
guess
both hot people.
I guess I mean, I guess when you're attracted, when you don't look like this, you get a little bit more opportunities in life. But yeah, I thought that was Will, welcome to the channel. Oh, okay. Yes, thank you, Will, for being on patrol, I suppose. But yeah, so I felt like it was a kind of a weird transition, certainly, that it was like they're making out in the hot tub now. But that kind of ends that. Like, she kind of confides in Blake, and they move on to their dinner portion of the thing, and that's where shit gets real, right? Like, that's where the words come out. So, the biggest thing that I kind of have to take away is that, so Katie and Blake sit down, and Blake goes on a long monologue that ends in essentially the I love you. And I thought that Blake had a really well thought out, like, thing to tell Katie, don't you? Like,
I mean, it seemed very sincere, but he was thought out. He was nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, oh man, well, he seemed like he would actually have an issue if he was going to say this to Katie and not get anything back.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was expecting it to go at that point.
Yeah, and I think this comes up later, and this becomes like an issue for me at some point too. Not from Blake. I think Blake is like actually a pretty good guy, and I like the way that he's portrayed by the end of the episode. But he goes, we were sitting there playing hockey with my family at night, and then I just realized that I fucking love you. And she goes, not even 24 hours later, saying she won't say I love you while there's another guy in the picture. But
I feel like she was breaking the news to Blake at that moment too, that she wasn't planning on saying I love you until she was down to her final one.
I was not. Yeah, I took that as a hey, I'm picking you. Like I didn't think that was
my principles.
No, I didn't think that was insincere, because she was just like, well, I know what I have to do. I need to end things with Justin.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm not saying it was insincere. But she basically said, yeah, I'm just going to say it here. And she may have already made the decision, but, like, I thought she literally said, like, yeah, like, fuck my standard. I'm just going to go and say it now. I'm not going to wait until the proposal to do it.
Yeah, and
let's just make this decision.
I just looked at my notes, and initially I wrote down that I felt like it was disingenuine, but I don't know that I actually believe that anymore. I don't think it was nearly as disingenuine as I thought it was the first time. And a lot of that does have to do with the fact that, like, I felt like she was like, okay, it's Blake. I've made my decision. It wasn't like she went on a date with Justin the next day and then said, oh, by the way, I love you too, which I would have just been mind blown if that was the case, right? Would you have been too?
Crazy.
Yeah, so You know, Katie
I'm
says,
just like, I'm kind of wondering and questioning. Like, I just wrote down bullshit, Katie, for
"Come here."
going and like saying this on such a quick turnaround. Like, doesn't it kind of feel like
I have issues
not
about.
totally, but it just feels kind of like it's a rebound kind of thing where Katie's
Oh.
like, okay, well, shit, Greg just like smacked me in the face metaphorically, so here I am. I'm just gonna throw myself at Blake.
Yeah, and I either have. Oh gosh, I don't really want to get into this now because I wanted to talk about this later. But when she says that she knew she was in love with Blake and was planning on telling him I love you, was before the conversation she had with Greg where they broke up, or before the conversation they had at night. And so she's either once again lying to herself or about the situation. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I said, I'll get more into detail and kind of clear that up later. But I had a problem with that because I was like, well, you're being disingenuous. This is not true, right? So like, you need to, your timeline doesn't add up. So, but yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah, the puzzle pieces don't all fit.
yeah. So I don't really have much else to say. They exchange I love yous. I was kind of cringy about it initially and got over it eventually. And then they cut to a makeout scene on the bed, and it's fantasy suite. They agree to hang out. We'll see where the night goes.
For a second, does anyone ever say no to the fantasy suite?
No. Would you? Yeah.
It's just always funny to me that there's this formal like invitation and they're supposed to like respond to it. It's like just give me the key and let me go, man.
Yeah, not to be like blunt or overzealous, but
Never.
I would be like, yeah, let's do it, and that doesn't come with the implication, I think, with like physical relation. Like, obviously I would hope that something would happen, but I mean, that's a really good opportunity, I think, to talk too. And actually
definitely talk away from all the cameras and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, those are like uninterrupted hours that you get with this person that you may spend the rest of your life with. You really that's an opportunity really to get to know them, when what they're like outside of this manufactured environment. So
and in both facets it can really be make or break. Like, is this actually the connection I have with this person? Are we going to be able to survive these moments, just the two of us?
Yeah. But
it's definitely a good gauge to have.
I was a little thrown off with the whole like laying on the bed, like hand around the throat makeout session that they showed on TV. I was like, oh, the Bachelorette, please. This is a bit
Did this
much.
move to cable?
I was like, aren't you guys owned by Disney? Like, I was not ready. I was just like, what on earth did I just watch? Right? Like, that was I was like, oh god. I ain't no prude, but why are you showing this?
Bachelor in Paradise coming up.
Oh, that's gonna be absolute like shit show. But anyway,
I saw plenty of blurred body parts on that.
But yeah, so they spend the night together, and they have kind of their moment, and it's really just kind of like you can tell that Katie has decided that it's Blake and no one else. So,
Well, and I just got annoyed because Katie, like, afterwards, I think in her interview with the camera, she's like saying, "Oh yeah, I was clear from the beginning that I was only gonna give my I love you to one of these guys." At the end, and I'm like, well, clearly you weren't clear about that because you just surprised Blake, surprised Greg before, like.
I felt like it was inconsistent. Certainly,
you're not very good at communication then.
In this moment,
or like it was
in this moment,
something you assumed they knew.
Yeah, in this moment, did not really show the type of communication that I would hope to see. But yeah, and once again, very manufactured moments, very difficult to ascertain what these people are like in real life sometimes. But yeah, I felt like the character that I was witnessing was showing inconsistencies that irritated me as well. So, and that's just kind of how I felt. But that's the Blake date, right? Like, there's not much else to it. Like it,
Nope.
it really is just kind of like this is it. And
Amazing.
and the cutaway is to the next day with Justin that starts with "Can we talk?" And Josh, I don't know if that just like hits you the way that it hits me, but like the "Can we talk?" It's just like you just feel kind of like,
it's never a good sign.
oh no, I felt my
My
heart seep
stomach
into
did
my
a little half flip.
Yep. And
You knew where it was going,
yeah,
and I mean, like we said, it probably not too surprising. Anyway, just talking for the past few weeks about how we didn't expect Justin to make it. She gives Blake that "I love you." I didn't know if she'd just like go through the motions and see maybe something happens,
mhm.
but yeah, didn't even get to do like a fun activity and then break it. It was just, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah, and I respected that. I felt like that was the right thing to do. So I was happy with the way that that was handled. I felt bad for Justin, certainly. I wrote down that I thought that maybe he wasn't surprised.
Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Do you think he was surprised?
I think he was fairly surprised. I think it was probably similar to Blake, where he didn't really know the relationships that she was having with other people. And they mentioned this later. I kind of like got pissed about hearing about it, but yeah, when Justin and Katie end up talking in the interviews at the end, they're like, yeah, we shared so many moments that were just unseen on camera.
I'm sure that's
or, like,
true.
on the show. I'm like, what the heck? What are the producers doing if they know that this guy is in like the final two? They're not gonna show
Yeah, they're building
like,
a different
any of his
storyline.
personality.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, okay, here are your the goofy faces you make reacting to things, and that's gonna be basically entirely who you are.
Yep. So
I felt like producers did him dirty there, and yeah, I think he was at least like relatively surprised.
I
mean,
wrote
definitely-
down. I wrote down, Josh, like real quick. Do you think that she would have picked Justin if he was the first date instead of Blake? Was it that much of a rebound that it was like?
It's funny that you say that, because I actually
I wrote
the
that
exact
down.
Same thing down.
Yeah, I was like, so would it have been Justin? Actually, just give me 1 second. I will be right back. So give me.
I believe Lewis has gone to retrieve food. He is a very hungry boy. Don't believe he's eaten this evening. And you kind of need food, especially when you're burning off all these calories, ranting to the crowd. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm back. Okay. Wow. I come back and we've already got 5 viewers. Oh, yeah. People love this comment. Yeah, because I wrote down at that exact moment when she was breaking up with Justin, I thought, would she have picked him if it was if like he had gone first and it wasn't Blake, right? More wine is needed for this.
Which again, like that brought me to like, is this just like the rebound thing where it's like, okay, the first guy she saw, she's just gonna throw herself at.
Man, it sure felt like that there for a minute. So
well, and it's weird too because she was talking like about after her like breakup with Greg that she owed it to Blake and Justin to come back, but then just goes on the date with Blake. So I was just like, oh well, did you really owe it to Justin then too?
Yeah.
Or do you feel like you owe him something?
Oh, I mean, I felt like part of me was like, Justin cannot really be surprised unless they really did have a large connection on the show that was unshown. But part of me too was like, man, I just wonder if Justin was that first date and they were throwing paint balloons at each other and then hanging out in the hot tub, would she have been like, Justin, I love you? I don't know. There's definitely a part of my brain that thought that.
Question.
Yeah, there's definitely a part of my brain that thought that, because the way that the show's storyline played out, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, right? So, I don't know. That was my hot take from that. But the breakup otherwise I felt like went pretty smooth. and then it cuts to the Tasha and Caitlyn interview with Justin. Josh, I want to bring up one part about that interview that they had with Justin first, and that's Justin saying, you know, was I there by default? So, what do you think? Was Justin there by default?
The memes certainly say so. He's been getting those for a few weeks now, where it's just like Justin here stumbling his way into first place because everything is falling apart around him.
Yep.
But I mean, I do feel like there was some sort of actual relationship that had to be there. There's no way that he just like flukes into this position.
No, they have to have some sort of relationship, clearly. But I think also clearly she had more of a relationship. Well, when she was like, no, you're not there by default, I was like, that's a lie. Right? Because she told Greg that Greg had a rose for next week, and she told his family that. And then obviously she likes Blake more than Justin. So Justin was there by default. Right? Like, well, that's just logically.
Does he like Blake more than Justin again?
Well, I don't know. At least the way that it played out, then yes.
Yeah.
Like the way that I'm witnessing the show play out, the correct answer to was I there by default was yes, you were there by default. Unfortunately, that's not to negate the fact that she probably did have feelings for Justin and they did have some sort of relationship, but ultimately he was there by default, and that is my take.
So yeah, in the interview, Justin said all the right things to Tasha and Caitlyn. I feel like he probably had to be going a little crazy watching everything play out just to be like, okay, I feel so helpless right now. And he even says, you know, he didn't think he had a fair shot at it. Cause
he's not wrong.
Ultimately, like Blake,
but it's
Blake
not fair.
Gone and had one-on-one time with Katie twice after she's had a tough breakup, and Justin kind of just sat there and was waiting. Yeah. So it's like he didn't even get to talk to her about their relationship. Maybe he says something that blows her away too, that really shows his like prospects in being a good husband and stuff, that would have been a mind changer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but yeah, once again, it's like the show's not fair. I'm not asking for fairness, but I'm just asking for, like, once again, you know, I did not want the show to be fair in a sense. I just want it to be genuine, right? Like, love isn't necessarily a fair thing. I think that we know that. You know, there's no, like, and it's not logical either. Like, I'm trying to logically explain some of these things from the way that I'm seeing it and the way that I'm seeing it and the way that it's being portrayed. But, you know, to say that this was always going to be logical that's kind of naive. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that, and I don't think that this was necessarily like like my whole point about her feeling like she is lying to Justin, I don't think it's like malicious by any means. You know, she cares about him, wants to kind of spare some of his feelings here, I think, but
sure.
That, like, I mean, ultimately, it's like, call it how it is. You know, if it quacks like a duck and it sounds like a duck and your name's Justin, well, you're not winning the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just really need to come out and say, we just weren't on that same level. I didn't feel the same.
That would have been nice to hear.
Stuff with you that I did with everyone else. Because they asked Justin at the end of his interview, do you like feel like you got closure here, or like they were saying we're happy that you got some closure or something. I'm like, I don't know that Justin really did get the closure. I think he like got a little bit of an opportunity to talk to Katie, but it was kind of just like, yep, I'm very happy with where I'm at now. Good luck. And he's just like, well, I still don't really know what happened. So.
Yeah, I don't know that I know exactly what happened there either, in the sense that, do I think that Justin has closure? And I'm not sure. Like, I think that the best closure Justin can get here is watching the season, right? Like,
yeah.
Because he knows what he and Katie had, and so he will be able to see, and maybe that doesn't actually give him closure, because if they really did have, like, that great of a relationship that wasn't shown, that's gonna feel bad because he's then gonna be comparing to like what he had and what they had. But I don't think that's really the case.
Yeah,
So,
and well, I mean, like he talked about like how he opened up emotionally with her in a
Mhm.
way that he never really has before too, and like got shut down
Mhm.
basically with, in Katie's own words, not doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
I mean, that's gonna mess with you. It's gonna hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I feel bad for Justin. He's a really nice guy, and uh, I'm hoping the best for
Yeah.
him.
And then once the interview like started to get kind of awkward, it was like, all right, cut to all Justin's funny faces. Let's see him.
Oh yeah, I didn't like how they did that with Katie there right after the interview too. It's like you had this serious conversation and then go into it and they're just sitting laughing together kinda, but not
Haha,
really.
this is so fun.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of awkward, but yeah. Well, and that's the end of Justin, and the next cut is to Katie's family, right? And Josh, just let me have it. What do you think of Katie's family in this episode? I just want to hear what you have to say here.
There's some highly opinionated women.
Yeah.
I was pretty uncomfortable, and you could tell that Blake was too.
Oh, absolutely. I think Katie's mom seemed like nice. I don't think I would describe her aunt as nice.
Yeah,
I.
I from the previews I had seen before, I was a little more concerned about Katie's mom,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely she came off as a good cop there
Yeah.
in this situation to Aunt Lindsay's bad cop.
Well, Josh, the one thing that like I don't know about you, but if somebody condescendingly called me cute, or like, "Oh, honey, you're so cute," I'd be like, "Man, fuck you." Like I don't, that irritates me to no end. Like I don't want to be spoken down to, And that's what I felt like that was. And it was like Blake just trying to explain like, "Hey, I really like her." And her aunt being like, "Well, I don't really care." I was like, "Then why are you here? What, like,
Yeah.
you said nothing nice." And I'm not like, you can be skeptical of this and everything, but like to be just so overwhelmingly negative during that talk, I was just like, "Man, that's just that would be hard for me to sit through." Like imagine
I feel
imagine
like
if
you
you're
guys
Blake.
tried to find some positives there. There weren't very many right answers. I feel like Blake maybe missed a couple opportunities to kind of step in and just be like, I do actually feel really confident about this.
Yeah, well, I don't know that he really felt that confident,
Yeah,
honestly. So
we can get into that a little more as we go on.
I'm not sure if that the proof is in the pudding there, but yeah,
But like she was definitely like not going to take any answer like smoothly. She's gonna just
that's fine.
be upset. But I with that being said, I felt like Blake could have played it a little bit better too.
I wasn't asking her to not be critical or like challenge the things that Blake said, but I mean like just the overwhelming negativity that just seemed to be like unrelenting just seemed inappropriate. Like if that was so, I put myself into both their shoes and I said if I was Blake, I would have left that being like, that did not go well.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good about this now. And if I were like Katie and that was one of my family members, I would be upset with them later after watching that. Would you not? Like, do you feel similarly, or like do you kind of have a different take on it?
I mean, to be fair, a lot of my family are assholes. So like,
I mean, mine
probably
too, but I
depending
wouldn't
on who I
expect them
brought
to do
in,
that.
we'd
right?
get that, yeah. But I mean, at the same time, I probably wouldn't ask any of the people that I'm like concerned about being an asshole to be on the show there.
That's
like,
also a fair point, right? Like, this is who you
So it's
chose
like, Katie,
to
you
come.
gotta kind of know what you're reaping here. Like, you asked her to come, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe with her personality, maybe she's just like, yes, I'm coming with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Got to have two people on for the family.
Yeah. Well, the whole like, the one thing she says where she was like, watching a train wreck your entire life and then being on the train wreck are two different things. I was like, that was the least reassuring thing I think I've ever heard anybody say about a potential marriage. Like,
I mean,
I've heard some things before, and that one was just, I was like, man, that takes the cake, right? Like,
yeah,
like,
because
it was
this was
man,
Blake
I feel
talking
good.
about watching his parents fuck up their relationship, and like it was difficult from him, but Blake was saying that he felt like he learned some things from it. And I mean, I do think that that's very valid from her point, that like it's a very different experience to go through from actually just like watching other people go through it. You're only getting so much of what's actually going on, so much of the difficulty that they're experiencing.
I understand that, and like I said, but it just felt like there was a better way to verbalize that than, hey,
Yeah, she
this
had
is
no
gonna
delicacy
suck
at all, and she was unapologetic about that.
you're gonna hate every moment of being married. Why would you do it? You should run while you have the chance. Like, I feel like she would have been better off saying that.
Yeah.
I was just very taken aback by that, and I thought to myself, if I were Katie and watching this and that was like my aunt, I would be upset with them. I think I would be disappointed in the way that they chose to talk to somebody that I was serious about.
No, and I think like with whoever I would bring on, I would be saying, you're allowed to ask questions. Like, I don't want you to accept this blindly, but you also need to have an open mind.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like
it was close.
She fell short here. She was not going to say yes, even if Blake came down in a golden chariot and was the most perfect man ever.
If he just came down from heaven itself and blessed the world, that wouldn't have been good enough.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like the dynamic there with her family was bad. Like, just straight bad. I would not have felt good if I was in Blake's shoes, and I think I've reiterated this
like
a lot here.
Katie, or maybe it was either her mom or her aunt, made the comment that like that's what her family's like, and that's what you have to like grow to live with if you're going to be in Katie's life. I mean, that was a little concerning.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that I would be concerned, right? Like, you marry the family to a certain extent, right? Like,
yeah, I'd definitely be asking Katie afterwards, like, hey, how important, how involved are these people in your life? Because like, you know, I can make the holiday rounds with them and tolerate that like once a year, but I don't want to like deal with these people all the time.
I like that you chose to use the words "deal with them." I don't want to deal with them. So, I mean, that's how I feel about the people that I'm related to. Sorry if any of you are watching this, but like, I mean, like, come on. It's, the holidays are enough, right? So, I felt really bad.
I still only need doses.
Oh, I just felt really bad. The memes, fire. If you haven't looked at the memes on Twitter or Instagram about the family meet, look them up. Hilarious. Every single one of them. Loved it. But yeah, I was just very
one of the memes I saw, I want to ask you a question about real quick. Who do you choose? Aunt Lindsay or Mama Barb?
Man, the throwback. So for those of you that aren't as familiar with the series as we are, Barb was Peter Weber's mother, who was also very invested. Pilot Pete's, yeah, it's Pilot Pete's mother, who's also very, very invested in his life. And I think that, well, first of all, what's the connotation? Like, do they have the same involvement in my life moving forward? Because, like, if Barb is like my mother-in-law, or if Lindsay is like my wife's aunt, that's two different things, right? Like, obviously mother-in-law has a bit more precedence and prevalence in my life than the aunt.
Yeah, especially when you're planning on getting married here soon. Like, I'm sure she's going to want a hand in that marriage.
Man, I wish I think Barb would fucking love me. First of all. And I really hate that about myself. But like I think I think Barb would love me.
I think I agree there. Like I feel like you can at least win Barb over
Yeah.
as opposed to Lindsay. Just
I think
you know,
if a Lindsay
she's just gonna
personality,
sit there and be a sourpuss.
yeah, I think if a Lindsay personality was someone that I have to win over, I'd just be like, I give up. I've done my best. I've moved mountains. I've changed time. I cannot win over Lindsay. So...
I feel like she's there at the wedding. I'm gonna see her like talking shit to my family about me, and they're just
I know.
standing there uncomfortably.
Well, you know my family too. I don't think they would take any of that nonsense. So and
they'll
then
be
it's real.
getting in on it.
Yeah, and then it's real awkward. And then there's a throwdown, like chairs come across the aisle, like asshole, throw a chair. So, but yeah, I don't have any more comments. But I would be highly, highly concerned if I were Blake in this situation now.
Well, so at the end of this too, like they kind of asked Blake about like how he's feeling about marriage, how much he's considered it, and it kind of seems like Blake hasn't actually thought about like marriage being the next step beyond being engaged.
You think Blake was surprised that he was the winner as much as everybody else? He's like, oh.
It was kind of concerning to me. I'm like, dude, what did you think was gonna happen? You're just gonna get engaged, and then that's
it.
The end.
Yeah, that's where it stops. Michael A said it begins in an engagement. Blake Moyne said it ends in an engagement.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Blake was lacking a little bit of forward thought. Like I said, I think that the way that I watched the episode, Blake seemed like somebody that I liked more as the season went on. Katie's somebody I liked less as the season went on. So,
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
And like I've always thought Blake's a good dude, but definitely questioning his readiness here.
Oh yeah, and so the next scene is very awkward. I don't understand, but they brought an energy healer where they wrote all the bad things down and burned them to this giant demon vampire statue in the middle of the desert. It was so weird. Josh, just like talk me through it. What am I watching? This part of the episode.
Why do you think I have the answers here? This was so weird. Honestly, they do like this weird hippie stuff every season too, for at least one date.
Yeah.
And I guess since the yoga thing didn't come to like full completion with Michael P before, they had to like get another hippie thing in. So yeah, it's just it was weird. I mean, good sentiment behind it, I guess. Like, you know,
they kind of made the giant statue they were burning alive look like Greg.
yeah. The whole time I was like seeing it in the previews as it came up, I'm like, is this an effigy to one of the contestants or Greg?
That's what they should have done. Now, I've watched like I don't know if you've ever seen like Survivor before, but I've seen many seasons of that show. And one thing that they would do is that they would walk by like the torches of the eliminated contestants as they went by. And I just think they may as well just build a fucking effigy to every single person that she broke up with and burn them. Which is less weird, honestly, to me than watching this. So, I don't know. So they were writing things in their journal that they wanted to let go of, and then they read them out loud to each other. And I think that, and this isn't an original idea, I saw this online and I'm repeating it, is that Blake probably wrote down Aunt Lindsay at least 1,000,000 times and then was just like, oh, I better spitball this. I don't want to say this to her, right? So I don't know. I have very few comments on this whole scene. It's just kind of strange, right?
Yeah. And so, like, I gotta be honest here. Basically, from, like, when Katie just, like, ends things, at the beginning, like saying "I love you" to Blake and all
Mhm.
that. There were several times where I'm like, I'm just gonna turn this off. Do I really need to watch the rest?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was dedicated to you viewers.
Yeah, that you
I
watched it
watched
so
the
that you
rest
could.
of it for you.
Yeah. Oh, it gets. I mean, it. Well, I don't know that. I don't think it gets good. I think it. I think it
good
get.
wouldn't be the word I would use.
Yeah, I think it gets more train wrecky. But yeah, I won't belabor the whole burning the effigy of Greg here, even though I think we could probably even talk about that for hours. I. The next scene is just as bad, Josh. It's so weird and
Oh
so
my
awkward
God, yes,
because
I agree with
what,
you.
like, can you imagine sitting across from somebody that you've like made out with, been on dates with, and they're like, "Let me help you pick a ring for your fiance."
Yeah.
Was that weird?
I was just sitting there. I'm like, why didn't they choose
Caitlin
Caitlyn
to
to
do
do
this?
this?
Was that not weird? Was anybody else thinking this? Please, show of hands. Like I want to know
Switch
that
over to a picture of me raising my hand.
I feel we don't have time for this. The type of high.
All right. Well, yeah, I was really like uncomfortable and just like sitting there thinking the same thing. Like, yeah, they like dated for a while. Blake got decently far into that season. They made out.
Yeah.
Blake said he was heartbroken when Tayshia broke up with him. So I'm certainly not taking my ex to go pick out an engagement ring.
If Blake's sister's any indication, he had true feelings for both Claire and Tayshia before they broke up with him. So it's awkward. And he was just like, man, I just got to take time to think about it. Part of me was like, well, maybe he just feels weird about the fact that Tayshia's helping him pick a ring out for Katie.
Yeah, I was wondering a little bit if it was
come on
that. I mean, Tayshia also did like theoretically get Blake onto the show. That's kind of how they explained it. But
theoretically,
it's it was just weird, and be that the way it is or not, like if he was just awkward around Tayshia, like it was still weird to see him like so hesitant to like just pick out a ring and nervous.
Oh,
like
and
I feel like at this point you should be like excited, raring to go.
He, to me, I mean, Josh, share your opinion here. He, to me, seemed very uncertain about proposing up to the moment where he got down on one knee, because that's essentially the next scene is the proposal. And spoiler alert, guys, they get engaged.
And so Caitlyn, as Blake is like going up, it's like, oh, don't be nervous. It's just this and this and this and this, which are like all the reasons that he's feeling nervous.
Yeah.
Like all those sources of pressure. I'm just like, why did you say that? It's a terrible thing to say to him in this moment.
Don't be nervous. This could ruin your life. Don't worry about it. Oh, God.
Yeah. So I had the comment here too, like, nothing in this episode has really given me confidence in this relationship.
Oh, I wrote down. Wait, let me get to it. So, my closing thoughts on the entire episode and the after the final rose thing was this relationship is going to fail, and I feel bad about writing that down actually a little bit. But I think Mark it down. This is going on YouTube, so people can see this and refer to it. And when they break up in March, I want you guys to watch more of the podcast. So, because I'm woke as fuck if I'm right here. But I do not have faith in their relationship at all. I don't know. After you watch this episode, what do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll say March. Like, I might give them a year, but I just feel like it's gonna fall apart. And then like later on, seeing them together, like the level of giddiness that Katie had, like it just felt like it was different from how she was acting earlier in the season around guys. Like she wasn't able to play it cool. It feels like it's a much more like sophomoric kind of love. I don't know that it's really
It doesn't feel like
Like,
adult love.
I love you, Blake. It's I'm in love. I'm happy to be engaged. Like, I'm gonna be a bride.
Yep. I don't know that that's the
Uh,
right. I don't know that that's the right take to have. So Odin wants to say hi to people today. There you go.
Maybe not fully like
Say hi.
in love with like
There you go.
that exactly, but in love with the idea of being in love.
So
She's like, I've followed all the steps. This is where I'm supposed to be. I'm gonna
well,
throw
I don't
myself into it.
I don't know about you too, but like you start kind of. I can imagine this environment makes that 10 times worse. What I'm about to say is that you start becoming and this is a negative thing, and I don't suggest people do it. Is you fall in love with the idea of something more than the person or their values, or you fall in love with the idea of who that person could be for you and not who they actually are. I feel like that happens to people, right? So
Definitely.
especially and you got to go over here. Especially earlier on in relationships and with the way that things go, it's like, all right, you want to still be here? Okay. It's like you start to think
it's dangerous to start idolizing
yeah,
people and like in turn ignoring red flags and problems and or rationalizing the things that are wrong.
oh yeah, I mean,
And so I was saying to like my comments, I don't know, maybe like I'm just being cynical and bitter and stuff.
well, what did you
with
think
it.
of the
I don't have a lot of faith in this.
yeah, I don't either still. What did you think of the actual proposals, like the vows, before the proposal?
Well, so Blake got up there and he's supposed to like engage the proposal,
Mhm.
and he kind of just freezes up. And
I wasn't sure he was gonna
starts
propose.
talking. So I was like, oh, is Katie proposing now instead?
Yeah,
Did he go and get a ring too? Which like
whatever.
we're in the 21st century.
Yeah,
like
I don't
there's
care.
nothing wrong if a woman proposes. Like that's fine. It's just like it gave me even more hesitancy with like how Blake's feeling, how certain he is of what's going on here, because it's like you're at the point where you shouldn't need like the reassurance in the
Yeah.
moment
Well,
to
it felt like
make that gesture.
and it felt like from the moment he said "I love you" to her at the dinner, his confidence in the relationship, I just felt like it was dwindling from his eyes.
Yeah,
It just
I can see that.
it felt like as it became more real to him, he felt less confident. And this is not to take away from Blake or anything like that, but like I said, he just seemed very uncertain. I was not convinced he was going to propose.
Well, and so when Katie finally finishes up, which I thought she had very like sweet, touching words, maybe a little cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's their relationship. But Blake starts to go, and I'm still not sure that he's actually proposing. It almost sounds like, with the way the speech is written, that he's about to like break up with her.
Oh, I was a little concerned, certainly too.
I don't know how much he writes on that on his own, and how much like producers are helping him and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Katie talks about him being a bit of a prankster. I don't know if he was like
What was I
trying to
watching?
make a
Good
prank there to be like,
good-
oh,
good
I'm gonna
prank.
get you, aren't I?
Good prank. I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah. so
Yeah,
it's
I don't
just,
know
like,
about that.
until he was down on one knee, I was
Haha.
not told that they were actually getting engaged.
I'm trying.
Other than the fact that I'd seen spoilers this morning since I watched the episode tonight. But
Yeah. So, the only thing that, like, Katie says at one point, she goes, "I thought, Blake, you showed up late, but you showed up right on time." And I was like, oh, that's kind of cheesy, but kind of cute. Like, it was all right. But that was, yeah, I spent the entire time up until the actual point where he got down on one knee. I was like, man, is he even going to propose? Like, this conversation is not, like, actually progressing forward. It was just him talking, and then he said, and then he just almost, like, plopped down on one knee in my mind. And was like, I better save this, right?
Right.
But yeah, and Blake and Katie get engaged, like we said, and they ride off into the sunset on horseback. And the last scene prior to them cutting over to the after the final rose is a horse literally about to take a shit, which I don't know if anybody else noticed, but like, I'm glad they didn't actually show the horse shitting, but that's what it was. Like, it was the horse that Blake was on. It was gonna take a massive shit, and it's like, wow, if that does not sum up how I feel about this entire episode, I don't know what does. So
yeah, everything's just gone to be a complete mess. It's a shit show.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the Greg interview now?
Oh man, I guess it's time.
Oh god. Do you want to go? Do you want to just like just lead this off?
So yeah, I mean they have Greg in, and they kind of ask him how he's doing, and kind of ask him what happened there, and Greg goes and says that really he needed more affirmation on the connection that he and Katie had, and like wanted like a real response, kind of like it felt like the points that we were kind of speculating on last week is basically what he was saying.
Yeah. So
right, did you get the same feeling there?
Oh, I felt
were
like
we missing something before?
No, I felt like he comes in and he says, you know, like I wasn't getting what I needed, and I left, and I don't have any regrets. Before Katie gets on the floor, if that's what you're asking, like what my impression of his conversation was. He's very cool and calm and collected and really articulate in the way that he says it, but I think ultimately he says, hey, you know, I don't regret the way that things played out, but I did not feel like I was getting what I needed anymore, and the only option in my mind at that point was to leave. And I don't know.
And I mean,
I think he
I'm
does.
sure he's feeling a little validated here too, like watching everything play out. Katie goes and turns around the next day and says, "I love you" to Blake.
Yeah.
Which is basically what he was asking for.
Watching this from Greg's lens is definitely like a win in Greg's eyes.
Yeah. So for him to like leave for the reasons he did, and like be asking for that out of Katie, and to have her turn around, I wouldn't have any regrets either. It's like, okay, you weren't going to say it to me for whatever reason there, even if you did actually feel it.
No, and I think that Greg watches this and thinks that, hey, maybe I just would have been second place anyway, or maybe this like,
and that's what he was concerned about, right? Like, you know, I'm sure you didn't really view Justin as that much a competition, but Blake at least was definitely still in contention, and you know, he didn't want to be standing there looking dumb when he goes and proposes and Katie says no, and then she goes off to Blake's proposal and she says yes. So
yeah, and you know, like I said, if I'm Greg and I'm watching this, I think this is nothing but like a win in my eyes for the most part. Like I'm like, wow, everything that I was concerned about and all my like general things I didn't feel affirmed on got confirmed not even 30 minutes into next week's episode. So like, why would I feel like I obviously could have maybe handled the situation a little bit differently, but I mean, who doesn't leave a situation like that thinking, well, maybe I didn't do everything perfect, as if things are perfect, but you sometimes just have to cut it down to the meat of things and say, okay.
Yeah, he absolutely made a mistake, or made some mistakes with that, but like, you know, you're very emotional, heat of the moment, you're on camera, and just like can't have the conversations you want to.
And so Katie walks out and just pretty much completely snubs him, and then from the moment she sits down for the first like 5 to 10 minutes, like she just says a lot of things that seem just like I've got my guns loaded, I'm gonna unload, I'm not holding anything back, period, end of story. So she comes out, she goes, I don't think you ever were gonna get engaged on this show. I think that you're an actor. I think that this is all fake. how if you ever really loved me, you would have never left. If you, like, I don't know, it just continues, right? Like, I could go on, but the fact of the matter is that like, how do you even say anything at that point? You know, like, you don't want to compete to
She
get
was
in.
ready to shut him down completely.
Yeah,
and not
you don't want to compete.
looking to listen.
You don't want to compete to get an edge. Like, like, this is not a conversation that you should feel like you need to win, right? Like, nobody wants to win the conversation, but I just feel like it's like, how do you even respond to that, right? Like, she's just kind of going off and
Right.
saying a lot of things, and she goes, well, I heard a rumor that you're not this, like, good, nice guy that you pretended to be on the show, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know if I would bring it up that way. I really don't know that I would lead with, I heard a rumor that you're actually an asshole. Yeah, like, because what does that solve? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just, like, I felt like, I keep saying like, I'm sorry. I'm worked up. I did not appreciate the fact that some of this stuff was very much so based in rumors, that it just kind of, I don't know, it just imploded.
So I'm sure like Katie was getting DMs from like
Sure.
people that knew Greg. So
So?
kinda. But I mean also his family was on there too saying something. I don't
Mhm.
think they were like put up to it or like
No.
bullshitting Katie or anything there. Talking about how Greg was like looking the happiest he's ever looked, how he just has a different kind of spark and joy in his life now that
I
they
don't know.
haven't seen since his dad was gone.
Everybody
So,
wants
I
to
mean,
assume
maybe
somebody
he's
has
not
an
as
ulterior
shy.
motive. Go
Pardon me?
ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
So maybe he's not as shy as he presented himself so
Mhm.
much, but he's also like around a bunch of primarily like type A personalities there, and maybe if you're not the most alpha of alphas, you're gonna take a step back.
Yeah. Oh, I know, too. I mean, if I'm in that environment, like, I mean, I'm kind of loud and obnoxious to begin with, so maybe I kind of get in that, but I don't know that, like,
Being on TV too,
being on
it's
TV,
it's all different.
it's a different environment, certainly, yeah. And I felt like he responded well to all the things she brought up. Like, he was very calm and responded calmly to a lot of allegations that were based in perspective and half-truths. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
like,
I think he looked at some of the response that people had to him last week
Yeah.
too, and well, I guess I don't know exactly when they
when it's
recorded
filmed.
this,
Yeah, I don't know when it's
but-
filmed either.
but I'm sure he's seen some of it, just to know that like the cut he was looking a little more emotional and unhinged as people have described in like the harshest
Yeah,
ways there, and he's like, okay, whatever happens, I'm just gonna play this calm no matter what.
yeah. And how does...
if Katie like wants to talk, great, I'll talk to her.
Sure.
If she's gonna get heated, I'm just gonna stay on the same level, and she's gonna come off looking worse for it. I think she did.
Yeah, I think she did too. And she says, you were gaslighting me the entire time. You were speaking down to me, and I don't know.
And then
I just
also
I don't
gave the wrong definition for gaslighting.
gaslighting. Yeah, I once again like
we had
I
this
really
discussion after
our
we
last
went
episode
off
too.
stream last week.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't know what gaslighting is, and will attribute many other things to be gaslighting.
yeah. It seems like it's become a bit of a buzzword. Like you were gaslighting me and blah blah blah, and I did not feel like that was just the case here. I really felt like, and I feel bad because there's not a winner here. Like, this is not a conversation you set out to win or lose. It shouldn't be. And like, I just
It felt like Katie was looking for a fight.
and he wouldn't give it to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think so too. So, And the whole like be a man thing, that always irks me.
Yeah,
Like,
that was
like,
something I wrote down early on because we saw that in the previews,
mhm.
saying that he wasn't a man for walking away
Yep.
from her, like leaving the love and all that. Just like that's totally unfair.
Mhm.
First of all, like I want to validate anybody who needs to walk away from a fight, from a tough discussion. You are not obligated to continue a conversation that you are not emotionally, mentally prepared to deal with at that moment just because the other person demands it of you. That is unhealthy. I have been there. Like, you are not less of a man, less of a woman, less of a person because you need to walk away from an argument. I'm sorry. I just need to go on that tangent.
Yeah, no,
And then she talks about him talking down to her, and I don't really
feel
know.
like that. I don't know what she's referencing exactly. I wonder.
Yeah.
It's like I keep thinking it's like, did I watch the same thing?
Right. The closest part that I could get to was him saying that he deserves better.
Yeah.
Like if he was fixated on that. But I mean, I took that from the perspective of him being like, yes, I deserve somebody who's going to tell me that they love me and want me to be with them too. Like not just,
Yeah.
you're going on to next week. Congrats.
Yeah. So Will put something in the chat here that it says, lol, being a man means whatever you want it to mean. Hate these narratives that being a man somehow means rising above. And yeah, I agree with you, Will. It's just like this whole idea of like, and it's like, this is
toxic.
this is the archetype. I mean, like I like to think that I'm a decent man, but like I'm also going to rock my mustache and my uncomfortably buttoned down Hawaiian shirt and my backwards hat and do Batch Bros Live every week with Josh. So I mean, like this whole be a man bullshit is like you can say that all you want, but what does it mean? I don't know.
It means you must be swift as a coursing river.
Stop it, Josh. Disney's gonna come for us now. We're definitely getting DMCA.
Shit.
This is getting shut down, and it's gonna be your fault for that comment alone.
No, I used less than 5 seconds. We're good.
Okay, good. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't know. I watched that and I'm just like, man, I feel. Stop it. I feel very like validated. I don't think I'm picking a side here because, like I said, it seems kind of silly to pick a side in an argument like this. But ultimately, I don't know. Like, was Greg not right in the end? Because the one thing that I'll come back to, Josh, is that Katie said she knew she was in love with Blake when they were playing hockey during his hometown. And I understand that as far as when things happen, it sometimes gets mixed up in the filming. But we know for a fact that Blake's hometown was before Greg's.
Right.
So she knew she was in love with Blake, supposedly before Greg. And so why did this fight even happen in the first place if that's the case? Why is she still angry? Like, is that a lie to herself? Or is that just, like I said, is she just not being completely honest with herself? Or
I think she is lying to herself a bit.
I think
and
so.
I think she's trying to like do the gymnastics in her head to get to the point where she can say that she's right.
love with, yeah, I know. And I feel
think
bad.
It's a factor too if like she goes out of this, she's probably replaying the situation in her head a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
decides to push forward, jumps onto Blake. I'm sure they talk about it more both in their one-on-one in the
Mhm.
fantasy suite, and then after that, and I mean honestly, like what's Blake going to do there to be like, oh well, maybe you were wrong and like you should apologize to Greg or something.
Oh, I don't expect that to happen.
Let's call him up.
No.
And, like that's not happening.
No.
Blake is 100% like supporting Katie here.
Oh, I don't blame
Sorry
him.
if that was too close to home for some of our viewers.
Blake should support Katie if he's in love with her. Why is that a
No, he
problem? That's
absolutely
not a
should
problem.
Support Katie, but at the same time, there's also being truthful with people. Like you
Uh,
want to be real.
I mean, Josh, you reap what you sow, but that's
Yeah.
that's up to the individual to be able to cope with that and move on. Like, but
There's
I
a lot
don't.
going on there.
I
And
don't.
it's
I don't expect him to do
messy and
anything but
complicated.
support her in this situation until they break up in March. But until then, I'm expecting nothing but support from him. And what has Blake done to
Yeah,
show
I
you
mean,
that he
and you
won't?
should,
Like, I think Blake's a great guy. So
Yeah, and I mean also like even with all that too, regardless of like what Blake actually was like would think of it,
mhm.
seeing it now, he wasn't getting like the full story before too. He was getting Katie's perspective of it.
I don't know how. Yeah, and I don't
And-
know how Blake watches this show. I don't know if he watches the show or not. But he definitely saw the Greg and Katie conversation, and I wonder how he
Yeah,
feels
and I think
about that.
I was gonna write this down. I
Uh-huh.
don't think I ended up doing it, but it was the thing we kind of talked about last week, where it's like, okay, whoever goes on and gets engaged to Katie now, like when they go back and see this, like he was in studio where they were playing it all, so
Mhm.
he at least saw like everything that was on there today. So
Yeah, I don't know how
yeah,
you.
it kind of weird to see.
I don't know how you watch that and feel good about your relationship, knowing that like you were
yeah,
essentially
I
the
definitely
third.
have some questions.
You're the third choice. You're there by default too. You know, like it's not. You know, I couldn't have Michael A. I couldn't have Greg, so I'm gonna have Blake. And that's what it ultimately seems like to me. Like,
Yeah,
and I
that's
feel
how it played out.
I hope that I really hope that's not how this goes, because I do wish I obviously don't know Blake, but I do wish him the best. I like him from what I saw in this episode and this season so far. He does seem like a very genuine, caring person. He seems a little aloof sometimes, but I mean, to say that I don't too is ridiculous. but yeah, you know, and one of the comments that I saw, so you know, Blake comes on, and but before I get to that, someone was said at some point that Katie is trying to destroy any chance that Greg has of becoming the Bachelor now. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Honestly, with the way she acted in the interview, yeah, I feel like she's going full petty mode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that like that matters. I think the way to ensure most that he wouldn't like get considered,
Mm-hmm.
unless she was just able to actually like lay out an argument that he's like super toxic and like abusive and all this stuff, would just to like let it go quietly. Because
No.
now you have people stirring, being like, oh my god, Katie just did this, Katie's picking a fight with him, what's going on? Oh, we need to see more of Greg.
Yeah, I think if anything, it helped his case in the long run. I think that the internet is very divided because it's a mob of people, but I think that there are people that would. I think that it would be. Let me formulate this. The producers would be satisfied if Greg was the next Bachelor at some point. I think.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean I think that would draw ratings. Like
I think that's what
he is interesting.
Greg's following on Instagram and
because of all
social
this.
media
Yeah.
skyrocketed after this whole stuff.
Absolutely.
I think he has.
Yeah, now like
people want to
are
see
going
more of
pick
him.
Side, Team Katie or Team Greg.
Yeah.
So
As if, yeah, I mean, it kind of got forced upon us. But Blake comes
I
out.
had a couple more
Go ahead.
notes
I'm
here
listening.
on their conversation. So at one point, Katie says that, well, Greg's like asking her, well, you know, I was wanting to like hear where you were, what was going on. I wanted to hear more than this.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you? And Katie's like, I don't know where I was. I was dating two other people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to say that to you because I didn't know where it was. And to me, that just completely proved Greg's point.
Yeah, I know. I
Where
agree.
it's like Greg's asking to be like, okay, are we ride or die together to the end? And you're now saying, no, I didn't know. I was trying to explore everything. I'm not going to give you an answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think that's totally fair for him to walk away at that point.
Oh, I think so as well. I think that he said what he needed to say, and you watch this as Greg, and you feel validated in kind of the way that things played out, I think.
Yeah.
So, and
I think he says in the conversation too, and like more the way Katie talked, put it into my head that Katie was, excuse me, that was awful. Katie was too focused on playing, like
her role as
she
the
was,
Bachelorette.
yeah, she was
Yeah.
like all the way in on just being the Bachelorette and not thinking about like the love and relationship beyond the show at that point. She's like, I'm gonna do this right as it's supposed to be by the book.
You know, and Blake comes out next too, Josh, and she also.
So before that.
Oh, you still got more? All right, I'm listening.
Yeah. One very last thing.
Go ahead.
They're ending the conversation here the second time because I guess they jumped to commercial the first time, which was also awkward.
Yeah. We can't.
And they say best wishes to each other.
Oh yeah.
Greg says it.
I wish you the best.
I don't know that he really meant it, but he kind of said it very like sweetly. And then Katie just comes back, and it was totally insincere.
It was pretty vicious. Yeah,
She said it with teeth.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was like, oh god, like just if you don't mean it, don't say it.
Those best wishes may not be sincere.
Yeah. It was not. It was not a good look. I felt like, and when Blake comes out, I just keep thinking it's like Blake has got to feel uncomfortable with his relationship. Really not a whole lot of, like, really the rest of the episode is that their talk between Greg, and then Blake comes out and was like, we're engaged, we're happy, and by the way, my family don't know, they're finding out now. As if that's not weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, it was weird. That's just kind of how I felt about the episode. There were a lot of things that I'm just like, oh man, I'm kind of uncomfortable. This is bizarre.
I know
what's going on. And it ends where Blake starts to like say something, and then
down. All right,
he cues into this musical situation in the crowd where everybody's putting up boom boxes like he did for Katie after she broke up with Connor.
And that's how it ends, ladies and gentlemen.
That's how it ends. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is awful.
And the boom boxes.
And the music wasn't even coming from the boom boxes.
No.
It's all the speakers
and the boom boxes raised, and that's the season, guys. So, yeah, I mean, Josh, I don't have a whole lot else to say. We watched it happen. I feel very uncomfortable with the Blake and Katie relationship moving forward. I don't know that it's going to really last the distance. I feel bad, overall. But we'll just kind of see how this thing's play out.
You say March. I'm going to go until next September.
Next September? Okay.
September 2022.
So we'll just kind of wait and see. I am not wishing them ill by any means. I hope that that's not that I know either of them. But I just don't think that. One thing before we go that I'd like to bring up, Josh, is that I don't know if you were watching the same episode as me, but there are multiple times where she says something that's affirming, but her body language is shaking no. Like, if you watch the episode back, there are several times where she says something like, I love you, but instead of, like, kind of giving the affirmative yes with body language, it's the negative no. I love you. Yeah, I love you. I'm so sure about you, and the real shaking no back and forth, and I'm like, man, I just, like, maybe it's because I normally look for those types of things, but I'd be interested, I hope other people watch the episode and see that too, because that's kind of what my impression was. Or if I'm, like, totally off base, let me know too. So, guys, Josh and I think we want to know who you think the next Bachelor is going to be. We know the next Bachelorette is Michelle. I'm calling in right now to the producers to see if I can't get a first ticket on to the season.
I have bad news for you, buddy. I think they already started filming, but maybe you can come in
I can be a late entrance.
Yeah.
So Why? She lives close to me. She's like the next state over, I think. I'm not
Yeah,
positive.
she's Minnesota.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I mean, Josh, do you have any closing remarks for this season?
You know, I do wish them the best. I
I do
hope that
too.
they are happy. The only reason that like I'd hope they'd break up would be so my prediction could be correct and I can have some degree of internet fame for it. Otherwise,
This is for clout.
you know,
This is for clout only.
yeah, Paradise looks crazy. Give me more Lil Jon.
Yeah, give me more Lil Jon. Yeah, so Josh and I will be back. We haven't talked about this yet, but I think we're doing a podcast for Bachelor in Paradise. So, guys, as always, I just want to thank you for watching this and supporting this. If you like the channel, leave a like, comment, subscribe. That'd be great. I mean, I'm having fun doing this. I hope we can continue this. Josh, do you have anything to say before we go?
Not really. Great to get going. We did a half season to start. Got our feet wet. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me on Twitter at KebabLOL.
Yep, and on Twitter, I'm at the Han Factor, I think, right? And then my Twitch channel here is at the Han Factor as well. So, guys, that was Katie Thurston's Search for Love. Ended with Blake Moynes. She's now going to be a Canadian doing shots of maple syrup until the end of time, I suppose. Or March or September. Who's really counting? But I just want to thank you guys again for coming by, and I will talk to you guys maybe next week. So, bye now.